Hey everyone, how's everybody doing this morning? I I'm always late. I'm sorry. Kind of the rolling joke for my streams, right? Hopefully my microphone is on and so tired. I just woke up like an hour ago and trying to reply to emails and check the forum and make sure everything's in order before I started. But thanks everyone for joining me this morning. And when the coffee kicks in, I'll try and be a little bit more lively. I'm Wow, it's been a rough week, right? For everyone, a rough couple weeks, I think, with everything going on with the events. But hopefully, we're all taking this opportunity to, improve our photography or spend more time with our family and do all those things that we always thought we never had time for, right? Um, oh, hi, David. Hi, George, Patrick, Craig, Kostov. How are you, Marcia? Good morning. In Florida, yeah, I'm so jealous. I'm debating between like maybe Tennessee or Florida because Tennessee has the Smoky Mountains, which I really like, and then Florida has the beautiful beaches and sunshine. But then there's hurricanes, right? So I'm leaning towards Tennessee now, actually. Just visit Florida time to time because it's only like a 5 hour drive from there, right? Saffron, how are you? Leon, good to see you. Wow, lots of regulars here. I appreciate that. Serge and Jeffrey, good morning. It's a law to move to Florida, is that right? Hi, Roy. How are you? Okay, so I cranked out a video yesterday on the super control panel, and that it's really for beginners, right? But I think hopefully someone picked up a few tips, maybe here and there. And I'm going to try and do them for the other cameras because the M5 Mark III and the M1 Mark II, they have additional settings in there and additional things you can do beyond uh, what you can do in just say the M5 Mark II and others. Uh, I feel like maybe I'm debating whether if I should just cover the differences and make it a little bit of a montage between all the different cameras, or just do each camera individually because it seems like when people are searching online, they're looking for their specific camera. Then at the same time, I don't want to bore people to death by putting 90% of the content being exactly the same every time, except for those little differences. So, anyhow, yeah, first world problems of a YouTuber, right? And we have I have some interesting events next week with Peter Forsgaard and Robin Wong. We're going to be challenging each other creatively, posting videos, and then talking about those videos during the live stream. So you'll get a chance to watch them, comment them, and maybe post some questions before the live stream. But we're going to be posting those this week. We also have sort of a challenge between us among several YouTubers to produce another video, and that's going to be coming out probably Wednesday. I think we're going to publish those. So everyone, take it if you're home on Wednesday or when you get home on Wednesday, check out all of our channels and see what challenge we prepared for you guys for. Because for me, it'll be not a first thing. I got a little bit of a head start, but the challenge that I took on is not my main genre, right? Not that I really have one. I guess real estate photography would be my main thing. But it'll be fun to see everyone's different approach to this one particular topic. So that's going to be on Wednesday. So check out our videos on Wednesday. Peter, Robin, Maddie, hopefully Emily and some others also caught on, but they haven't reached back out to us about that. Um, let's see. Paul, John. Hi, John. How are you? Good to hear from you. There's another, a lot of my viewers, when I look at my statistics, right? About half of you are 50 and older, you know, and out of that, more than half of those are like 65 and older. And there's some of you I haven't heard from in a long time, and you used to email me or leave a comment time to time. Uh, so maybe I'm just a little hypersensitive now because I'm worried about you guys. But there's some of you I haven't heard from in a while. So if you're doing okay, let me know. Um, I don't know. I worry about it sometimes. Like I know Larry, I haven't heard from in a while. There's another John, who's an electrical engineer. I haven't heard from in a while. So if you guys are around, shoot me an email or you know, post a comment somewhere. Just let me know you're doing okay. Uh, let's see what we got. I'm just gonna skim the comments real quick. Rob's doing the 366 suit a day challenge for 2020. There's 366 days this year, isn't there? Oh, this is a suit that I bought, God, probably at least 10 years ago, and I've only worn it like 3 or 4 times. Because it's kind of a spring color, so you only get to wear it in the spring, and then most of the time I didn't need to wear a suit for anything. But I think now I have a good reason to. I really like dressing up in, for my streams and for my videos. I mean, if you watch my videos, I think from day one, I don't think I've ever done a video without at least a collared shirt. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I've never done like a video in a t-shirt or sweatshirt or something, right? It's always been at least with a collared shirt, usually button down or vest, and then now I'm just adding a suit to it, right? Just kind of filling out the thing. But yeah, every day before the stream, I try to get ready. Today I didn't get really ready fast enough, but I try to get ready about an hour before and dress up, comb my hair, shave, all that stuff, just like I was going out to meet some friends, right? Because that's really how I feel like this stream is I'm just hanging out with some friends and chit-chatting about photography and whatever else comes up in general, related around that. So uh this is how I would probably dress up if I was going out to meet friends anyway. Not that we really can do a lot of that these days. And let's see, how's my video? Everything looks okay. Video and sound is okay today, everyone. I can adjust this mic slightly. Yeah, right there. Maybe that's a little better. Oop, too much. Okay. Let's see, what's going on up here? Edgel is good. Peter, how are you? Thank you very much. He really liked my SCP video, Super Control Panel video. Um, and oh yeah, he's bringing about that I added him to the forum. Hopefully the forum is much better now about sending emails and getting the confirmation and activations. I think I've worked out a workaround that I can get the thing to email properly now, because before it was really struggling, and I don't know if the emails were being, you know, blocked or disappeared somewhere on my server or on your server or somewhere in between. So I did some tweaking, and it seems to be a lot more reliable. Just make sure you know where to check for spam if you have a spam folder, to look there, or just search for Rob Trek, with a space in between, ROB space TREK in your mail, and it should come up no matter what folder it's in. If you're looking for an activation code or a password reset. And as always, you can, if you're still having trouble, just email me and I can send you out a password so you can log in. And it'll be automatically activated once I give you a password. But I'm getting a lot of good participation there in the forum as well. There were some beautiful pictures sent by Francois today, and he was introducing himself in the forum, and he said that he started with, I think it was the E300 or the E310, the old 4/3 cameras from mid 2000s, right before they even had IBIS. And they used a sensor made by Kodak, of all places, right? They were made by Kodak, and the images he sent were just the color was really beautiful. So if you get a chance, go to the forum and go to the where people introduce themselves, and you'll see a post there by Francois. Uh, I think his ID was like FJ something, but it was really, really. I was so impressed with the colors. I'd show you now, but it'd be like you wouldn't appreciate the colors through a live stream on YouTube. So go check those out from Francois. I really, really was impressed. And and I think that's partially why I like my old Pentax camera, because it uses the old CCD technology, and the colors are really amazing that come out of that camera as well. And you know, our Olympus cameras, of course, have come a long way, and the colors are, you know, fantastic. But there's something kind of nostalgic about shooting with a very old camera with old technology, and then still getting really amazing images out of them. And that's what I mean about, you know, just every camera offers a different experience. And you know, people ask me what's the best camera sometimes, and I just say the best camera is the one that's best for you. You know, whatever uh, how they feel in your hands, and the kind of images they produce. If you know beforehand, usually you can find things online. Uh, but I'd say ergonomics is really the most important thing with a camera. Being able to use it, and that's why I was drawn to Olympus, was for the ergonomics. But then it has that menu system, right? So I'm hopefully I'm trying to make sense of the menu system for everyone, uh, you know, through my tutorials and things. I think because they do have some logic to how they organize the menu system. I think early on, right? Because the basic things seem to have some logic to it, but when they started adding features to it, I feel like they had different teams working on it, or maybe there's some turnover in the staffing or the engineers, that when someone else took over, they had their own idea about how they want to organize something, and they just tack it on to an existing menu system. And they decided that, you know, I'm going to add, you know, this feature to the camera. I think it should be in custom menu B, you know, for whatever reason. Whereas the previous team might have been thinking, oh, I want to add, you really should put this in custom menu A, because it's related to autofocus. It has nothing to do with image stabilization. The other guys are like, well, autofocus is no good if the image isn't stable, so we should put it in. But you see where I'm going, right? And that's what I feel like what happened to the Olympus menu system, and they really do need to revamp it so that one person or one team organizes the menu in a way that makes sense to that one team, and not to 10 different teams over time, right? Um, okay. Oh, Leon, thank you. Yes, a mirror image. Let me flip my screen back. You know, when you flip the screen out on the EM5 Mark, what is this? No, EM1 Mark II, and it's probably true for the other flip screens. It reverses the image in camera for some reason. And I think there's a way to turn that off, but I got it. But thanks, Leon. Good eye. See, that's a photographer's eye, right? They catch that stuff. Let me get centered too. There. Oh, he's on from Malaysia. Wow. Good food in Malaysia. But I hear you guys are on lockdown, so I don't know how you guys are surviving, because food is a big deal over there. You know, with all the markets and everything. Just ask where you know, I've been to Malaysia actually, if you didn't know, many years ago. And Robin Wong is also, he's Olympus visionary there in Malaysia, and also has a channel here on YouTube. Lotus, how are you? Yes, David, I believe you are activated in the forum. But if you can't get in, just send me an email again. But I thought I sent you an email taking care of that. Um, how do you know how old I am, Mark? I don't know. We get we get YouTube collects data, not YouTube, but Google, right? Or whatever the name of the parent corporation is, ABC Corp or whatever. Um, Anything you do online, data is constantly being collected on you, either through cookies or when you log into your accounts. And one way or another, whether they cross reference data between sites that they own, where they or they extrapolate your age. But they give me metrics showing my demographics, right? Age and country and gender. Um, those are the three that I kind of skim. So I can see that, more than half are like uh, 50 and older or 55 and whatever that metric. I don't look at it that closely, but I like to see that I'm hitting a broad audience, right, from 18 and up. And and for the most part, I do. The When I started out, my demographics were pretty even, right, between each group. But now it seems to be skewing more towards an older group, and I don't know if that's because we're all just getting older, and and I'm not gaining any new followers, right, that are younger, or but at the level of subscribers I have now, I think it's a pretty fair representation of new users and existing users or viewers. And but that's all. So I don't actually collect the data. I just look at data that's already been collected on my account. Derek is in the cold UK, Northumberland, UK. Well, welcome. It's warming up here finally. Oh my God, we're getting more days over 50 degrees Fahrenheit than under now. I mean, it still gets under that at night, but during the day, I think today we're gonna get it in the 70s. I hope so. Not that we can go out, but still. This is a jacket, huh, Mark? Okay, thank you. This is a jacket. It's not a suit. I think that's correct. I was never really a fashion connoisseur. I just kind of see something. I say, oh, I like that, so I buy it. Or I used to. I don't buy much clothes now, except at Goodwill. Where can I find the forum? Just go to my website, robtrek.com, and then you'll see a link to the forum, but it's just robtrek.com/forum. I'll just type it in here. Okay. Posted my first fun pic to the forum. Okay, I'll check that out under the picture a day. Yes, we need more activities in the forum. So maybe some challenges, and I was thinking about adding to some challenges for the forum itself, not necessarily for us creators here on YouTube. Oh, hey Joe, how are you? Registered on the forum and even add one content to your live chat. Good, Leon. Joe says, my tutorials on the menu system and others for the camera have been great. Oh, thank you. Good. Let's see. I prefer Olympus to Panasonic. Everyone says how good Pana menus are, but they just don't work for me. Yeah, I mean, it's true because every menu system, your brain is wired a certain way, and some menu systems are going to make more sense than others. I found the Panasonic menu systems worked really well for me. Um, the challenge I have with the Panasonic choices that I had when I was looking at cameras was I didn't like any of their cameras. There was no G9 at the time. There was no, um, I think the GH4 was still out. They were all big and bulky. So I didn't consider Panasonic. The only Panasonic I considered back then when I bought the EM10 Mark II was the GX85, but they didn't have one on the shelf. So I bought an Olympus. Who knows what would have happened if they had a GX 85 on the shelf? I might be a hardcore Panasonic shooter right now. It's just these little things in life, right? these small decisions you make that affect your total track or path in life. Um, you know, just little things like that, right? But the Olympus menu kind of clicked with me after I kind of got a feel for it. It feels like the Olympus menus were designed by really techies, which makes sense. But from a consumer standpoint, you need to design the menus for consumers, not for techies. Uh, but anyhow, that's the problem is they've had this menu systems for more than 10 years. So it's hard for them to kind of just revamp it without, you know, upsetting a lot of existing Olympus users. But they need to bite the bullet on a new camera that comes out, Yeah, call it a instead of something in the OMD line, make it a one of the pen line cameras, and just mess it up and make it really easy. Mess it up for the rest of us, but for new people getting into Olympus, But what do I know? I'm not a marketing guy. AJ, how are you? I'm sorry it's 1 a.m. Hopefully the Thursday stream that I do around 3:30 is a little bit more in line. It's still late, but it's not 1 in the morning, right? Yeah, Severin agrees, I think, with me in the sense that he says when he switched from the EM line to the Panasonic G9, he felt like he was freed with such a nicer menu system. And yeah, I would be in that same boat, right? Like if I bought a G9, well, any Panasonic really, but I have the GX GX85 now. And I really like the menu system in that, and they say that the G9 has even more features. So a G9 is in my future one day, maybe. Uh, I just don't have the budget for it now. Even though it's like less than $1,000, it's just if I needed it, I could put it in my budget. But I don't need a camera like that, so it's not in my budget at all. And by budget, I mean what's the limit on my credit card? Oh, Peter's been documenting the empty streets on an RB67. Wow, so you're going out on medium format. I should do that. I should do a drive-by episode where I take out the medium format camera that I got from Larry, which I haven't seen in a while. So let me know you're okay, Larry. Uh, but I've always wanted to shoot. I was shopping medium format cameras for a while, and I ended up with a Fujifilm 690. It's a 6x9 medium. Uh, but the old Hasselblads and the Mamiyas, I looked at a Mamiya 3C330, which was kind of nice. And the one they had at the store was just not premium. It was only like 200 bucks. So it's priced accordingly for its condition. But if I'm going to buy an old camera like that, I want to have one that's just in excellent shape. And I don't mind to spend a little more. If it's like $400 for a C330, but it's in really good shape. All the light seals and it's had a CLA done, whatever that is. Then I would definitely get it. But I don't want to buy a camera where I just feel a little bit uneasy with, especially old film cameras, right? Because you can get light leaks and you'll never fix it unless you spend another couple $100 doing a CLA on it. But yeah, the RV67, that's a nice camera. Trees are flowering in the mid-Atlantic. Yes, Barry. I took a picture of my tree in the front yard, which has blooms beautifully. I don't know what kind of tree it is, but it's a beautiful tree. I wonder if I can show you guys. I'll try and pull that up. Uh, Hi. Good to see you after a while. Oh, hey, One Life. How are you? Thank you. Rob, after watching Peter Forsgard video on how to set the display for raw photos, highlight. I'm wondering, do you do this? No, I do not. I haven't watched that video. He just put one out, I guess. Best settings for the M1 or something. Uh, so he's talking about decreasing the saturation and contrast to -2. I guess. Because I think ultimately, I think the back of the screen that you see is a JPEG image or interpretation of the raw file. It's a JPEG that you see on the back of the screen. Because when you take a picture in RAW, your camera embeds a JPEG image into the RAW file, and it's usually large normal, right? It's a very small file. And I think that's what the histogram and everything else is based off of, is that JPEG image. And he may have explained all this in his video. Like I said, I haven't watched it yet. So a lot of people argue that the highlights and shadows and histogram and everything on the back of your screen are not that accurate, or not as accurate as drawing from the raw file itself. So I think what he's doing here by reducing contrast and highlights is trying to compensate for that difference, so that you see a more representation or more accurate representation in the histogram and things. So it makes sense. It makes sense. I don't use the highlight shadow much. Um, time to time I do when it's very high contrast, but usually I try to just expose for whatever the subject matter is. And if I was doing more landscapes, I would be a lot more conscious of the highlights and shadows, right? But for just walking around street photography and drive-bys that I do, I try to make sure the subject that I want is in focus and exposed in a way that I want, and then just let everything else fall where it may, unless there's some reason I want to include uh, those elements, right? Uh, for example, when I do my real estate jobs and I have to do the outside shots, I definitely bracket those because I do want to bring in the skies and everything, right? And the clouds, and I want all of those to be exposed and give a nice representation of what you see with the naked eye. But for my normal photography, just if I was taking a picture for it, from a personal standpoint, I'd probably just expose for the building and then not worry about the skies. Because, like I said, I'm not a big post processing guy. I just like to take the picture and let it be what it is. I mean, I know you can push and pull a couple of stops in post processing. Uh, But like I said, this it's just a hobby for my personal stuff, so I don't want to work that hard at it, right? I just want to go out and have fun and take pictures and compose things and learn about improve my skills with the camera, and not so much trying to create that epic image that I can post or sell or print. The few times I do try to create that epic image, then yeah, I would definitely watch my highlights, my shadows, and all of those things. And I post process what I can. But for me, most of the time, it's just about going out and enjoying that time of, it's like an escape. That some people say it's like an escape, right? You can kind of get away from the real world and turn the world into how you see it, so to speak. Tony says, enjoy using both the EON 10.2 and the GX80. Uh, yeah, I can't remember. See, the GX8, I don't know what mine is, if it's 80 or 85. And people say Olympus names are confusing. Yeah, try and start understanding why they call one GX80 and one GX85. I mean, I looked it up and it was basically something to do with the video recording time. So they would call one model, I forget, they would call one a GX80 because it has unlimited recording time, and the other one a GX85 because it's made for those countries where you have some recording time limit. That may be part of it. I don't know. But it is very confusing, especially Canon. They got EOS Rebels, they got Kiss, they got something else, and they're all the same camera. At least with Olympus, they have one name for one camera worldwide. What I'm a little disappointed though, there's two things okay, I'll come back to this, but there's a couple of things I discovered about the EM1 Mark III that surprised me, and I'm not happy. Uh, Sounds like he works for the NSA based on Google Analytics analysis. What is the best camera for spying? There's no camera good for spying. The Silver Challenge, certainly the challenge, nice for those under personal isolation. I'm getting there. Yeah, I tried a couple of shots, Basically, there was a challenge to take a picture of a trophy or some shiny object, and people were saying, yeah, use a pot or trophy or what was some other recommendations. But these were all things I don't have. Ironically, I don't have a steel pot that's tall enough, or uh, I don't have any trophies, and there was some other suggestions. I just don't have those things. I got a couple of pans that are ceramic that I use for cooking, and that's it. You know, so I was thinking about going over to my mom's house, but I'm trying to practice the social distancing because I'm sure she has 1,000 pots and pans. And I called my sister for some trophies, but she didn't have any. Um, so I'm at a loss. I did find a drink mixer. It's about this high and it's all stainless steel that I'm going to try. But it doesn't have much texture to it at all. It's just a smooth stainless steel object. But the part of the challenge is to, like there's engravings on trophies that you want to try and bring out. And there's no engravings on it. I was thinking about maybe taping a coin to the shaker or mixer and capture the stuff on that, but I don't know. Al Bundy, how are you, man? I haven't seen you in a long time. How you doing? He said he traded his gear at B&H for toilet paper. Peter Cardo, how are you? Uh, Leon says, Rob, I'm sure by the time you are right to buy the panty jean, there will be some Olympus camera or lens that you will draw your attention to rather buy that. It's possible. It's possible. I'm just at a point now that I need to start using the cameras I have more. I mean, every camera, I use the M1 a lot, right? The Mark II and the Mark III. Um, but the EM5 Mark II, I'm not using enough. The XT30, I'm not using enough. The GX80 or 85, whatever this is. There's three cameras there that I'm barely touching. They're not cheap, right? They're all really nice cameras. Even the Fuji. As much as I harp on the ergonomics on that, it really takes nice pictures. And there's supposedly a firmware update. I saw some thumbnail for a firmware update today that they improved the tracking and stuff, which, I'd be curious because I know the tracking really sucks on it now. Roy says he's doing house cleaning. Well, he's listening to my stream while he's doing his chores at home. Been on lockdown since Monday. Wow. Let me toggle something here. Make sure I try not to get too far behind with the comments and in the chat room. Yeah, Severin said he was going to buy the M1 Mark II, but ended up with a G9 because the guy at the camera store suggested it. And let's see. I think he said because of the viewfinder is what made him get it over the EM1 Mark II, and then the menus really probably came after that, right? So yeah, everyone talks about the viewfinder. I have to look at that one time. That's something I've always said, in previous streams or videos that It'd be nice if Olympus put a really good viewfinder in the M1s. Supposedly they have like a high refresh rate. There's some technical things, right, that make the viewfinder choice the proper one for the camera. Uh, but that has little to do with sales. I think you know when people look at the viewfinder, I don't know what the challenge is technically that they didn't want to put one of the higher end viewfinders in that are available now. Or if it wasn't a technical challenge, what was the marketing decision for that? Because a lot of people, the first impression of a camera is when they look through that viewfinder and they're just wowed by that, right? Doesn't matter what the images look like at that point when they're initially buying the camera. Um, and the user experience is very important. I'm perfectly fine with the viewfinders the way they are. It's not a deal breaker for me in terms of buying decision of a camera, but it can be for a lot of people. And just like when Olympus decided to go with a plastic EM5 Mark III, that's a deal breaker, regardless of the image quality and features and everything else that makes it an awesome camera. If it's plastic, people are not going to buy it. Some people are not going to buy it, right? Uh, and I get that. It's fine because when I pick up my EM5 Mark II, that's a solid that has some substance to it, right? It feels solid in the hands. And the M5 Mark III feels lightweight, you know. I mean, it's a solid camera, but it's not the same as a metal camera. Uh, but again, those were not deal breaker or decisions for me. They were simply considerations secondary to ultimately what the features are and the image quality and everything else and ergonomics. And I prefer the plastic body on the M5 Mark III for me because I'm a vlogger, right? And I have to hold the camera out, by hand for lengths of time. And I, I would prefer a lighter camera, even if it's only 50 grams lighter. Every gram counts when you're out hand holding and vlogging. But for most people, for photographers, they don't care about 50 grams. They're throwing on a 300 millimeter f4, a kilo of lenses onto it anyway. So what's 50 grams, right? It's nothing. All right, let me try and catch up again here. Uh, Mode A on the Pen F, is there any way to change exposure compensation dial to other dial? Yes, you can change the exposure comp, and I did do a video on that. Uh, Dang it, I can't remember what it's called. Let me look for you real quick. If I can find it very quickly, I'll put a link here. Uh, yes. Watch episode number 53 on my channel. It tells you how to reassign the mode dial to another dial. And instead of getting plus or minus 3 exposure comp, you can get up to plus or minus 5 exposure comp. It's an old video, much younger Rob. Much younger Rob Trek there. But yeah, check that out. Episode, I'll just put a link to it. Let me see. I copy this. All right, here's a link to the Pen F button. Okay, so there's a link to that video for you. Patrick asked me that one, so there you go. Hi Rob, apart from using a tripod, when should you turn IS off? What about at higher shutter speeds? I'm still researching that. I mean, ultimately, if your shutter speed's 1,000th of a second or 2,000th of a second, I don't know how much difference image stabilization can make. So I need to research that. Uh, but yeah, I would just leave it on all the time. Personally, I do. I leave it in auto. And I am researching some uh, image stabilization. I'm trying to make a video for it. I'm really struggling with it because, Peter Forsgaard and Robin Wong already done, very good videos on image stabilization, and they can probably offer you some more direct or practical tips. Uh, but I'm struggling with the whole image stabilization uh, video for the because I do want to make one, and I want it to be different than what Peter and Robin have already done to some extent. Because I think there's definitely some gaps there that I can fill when it comes to image stabilization, and I might be just overthinking it, you know. Uh, but it's on my short list of videos to make. Hopefully in April, I can get one. But I wanna go out and practice in the field some of the techniques like you're talking about, or implying that, when do you need image stabilization or not? Does it make a difference? Because there's some very subtle things like uh, that because it's a 5-axis, right? Let's say this is the sensor. If the image stabilization is tilting the sensor, let me go this way. If it's tilting the sensor this way, and then up and down, your focal plane changes, right? The focal plane is now changed. So is now one of the corners going to be a little bit less sharp? Uh, I'm really getting into the weeds of image stabilization. But this is where I'm trying to differentiate my video from all the other videos that you find on YouTube about image stabilization that's not covered, right? That I have found on YouTube. Now I've found articles on it and I see lots of threads in the forums about it. Not lots, but sometimes. And I want to try to extrapolate from all of that user data, technical data, and then try and present that in a way that you can use in a practical sense and things you need to consider. Uh, but the general guidelines for image stabilization are, if you're on a tripod, turn it off. If you're shooting at very high shutter speeds, I would turn it off. 1/1000th, 1/2000th. Uh, Depending on if you're panning left and right or vertically, uh, do you use a different image stabilization setting? So there's a lot of things to consider that I'm not prepared to answer and give you a quality answer to. So let's see. So David, yeah, just check out Peter and Robin's videos on that first. And maybe you can post a question on their video and see if they can give you a better answer than I did. Al Bundy says he also has some NTSC and PAL frame rates. That's why the names are different. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Panasonic did not put in all frame rates in all models. For example, NTSC models don't have 25p. That's PAL. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, I've seen that before. Like what's weird though is like my Pen PL8 has 25 and 30. I don't think it has a 24, but it's sold everywhere. Uh, Definitely the TG5 that I have doesn't have, like a 24p in it. Uh, they should just give people the option to select whatever frame rate you want. I don't know what. Well, I'm not a videographer hardcore, so I wouldn't know what challenges uh, people will run into if they're recording at 25p, then posting on NTSC systems, right? For display, because a lot of times manufacturers, and this is an assumption on my part, they leave out certain features uh, between cameras, that they sell to in different countries, or maybe not even different countries, maybe all their cameras. They leave out certain features that they could do because they don't want the tech support issues that go along with it, right? It's like, if somebody's recording in PAL here in the United States and they're running into scan lines or whatever problems that might cause if they're trying to rebroadcast at 24p, Olympus or Panasonic doesn't want those tech questions from them, right? So they're trying to reduce the level of tech support they have to provide on a camera. So they leave some features just out completely. If everybody was a hardcore enthusiast or professional, they'd probably put every feature in every camera, but they reserve a lot of the features for their very high-end pro-line cameras because uh, they need to have them, but then they don't have that tech support issue because usually people buying those cameras do have a level of expertise and understand those settings and the limitations thereof. So, and just speculation on my part. I'd like to photograph the space station tonight from my garden. Any tips? The EM1 Mark III. Wow. I have no idea, Howard. I'm sorry. I've never tried to photograph a satellite or space station. Um, I see them sometimes when I used to go out and try and do astro. I'd see this little speck of light going across, and I know that's a space station or satellite, but I don't know how to capture something like that. I'm sorry. Andreas, hi. Oh, Mike Hamley. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. What are the two things? There's actually one thing on the M1 Mark III, and it has to do with the power supply. So I did that video on the external power supply for the camera, and I'm not sure if there's a workaround for this that it's not going to be an issue, but the power supply that I bought and recommended in that video is perfect. It powers the camera independently, not independently, but it will power the camera or it'll charge the battery. It'll do one or the other, and it does it very well. Because I was recording, it was actually that last video on the super control panel that I didn't recharge the batteries from my last photo job. So the batteries were low on the M1 Mark III. So I said, oh, okay, this is a good opportunity for me to use the power supply that, you know, that I bought and can uh, continue recording the super control panel video. So I plugged it in and it was fine. But then I have an external monitor that I use when I'm recording the video so I can see myself. It's a big, I wish you guys, maybe I can show you. But you see it there? That that right there is the M1 Mark III, and there's the video monitor. And that's, and then behind me is the where I record my tutorials. But the video, the HDMI turns off. The HDMI output turns off when you're powering the camera from the external through the USB-C port. I could not get the HDMI or the external monitor to come on when I was powering through the USB-C port. So that was the main thing. Uh, the second thing that I was thinking was a problem, but it's not a problem. It's something I knew about before I bought the camera. So it didn't surprise me, but it's frustrating that Olympus didn't get rid of the 30-minute record limit on the camera. So usually I'm very conscious of that, right? But I was recording that super control panel video, and what is it? It's like a 26-minute video now with the editing I did. But my videos, my tutorials, I try not to do any cuts. I just sit down and I just talk for 20 or 30 minutes straight. No script, nothing. I just, that's how I do my videos. I should do a script or an outline. They might be a little bit better if I did, but So the super control panel video, I just sat down, I started talking, and I don't know how long it was, 5 or 10 minutes I was talking, and I said, okay, I'm done. And then I look at the camera and it's not recording because I went over the 30-minute record limit. So I had to, and that's partially because when I had the external power supply plugged in, I didn't have the benefit of that 7 or 8 inch screen that I could see the little red record button light. Um, so the light, so I didn't see it stop recording. And then, and when it did, the 30-minute limit is frustrating still to this day, for people like myself that sometimes record more than 30 minutes. So I had to start over, uh, and so I started over from scratch rather than trying to find that point that I got cut off. Because when I'm talking for 30 minutes straight, my train of thought is, if it gets broken up like that, it's hard sometimes to come back in after the fact and pick up where you left off. At least for me, my brain just doesn't work like that. I have to just start talking and then not stop until I'm done making my point or talking about whatever it is I'm trying to teach. And so that was the two things. It was the fact that the HDMI turns off when you plug in the external power supply. And again, I haven't dug in the menus to see if there's some workaround for that. And then the 30-minute time limit is still frustrating for me behind the scenes because sometimes I have to start over. I have to re-record for another 30, 40 minutes. Anyhow, uh, that was that. I forget who was asking me that. Mike Hammerly. Hopefully that I answered the question. Very long-winded answer. Uh, Maybe a beginner's question, but do you recommend or not adding a UV skylight filter as a lens protector? Um, I I don't recommend it for general lenses. I recommend using a lens hood instead, because I don't like to put glass in front of glass, unless you get a really high quality UV filter that is, and it doesn't have to be a UV filter. I believe they sell glass, lens protectors that screw on that double as a UV protector, but their primary purpose is to protect the front element of the lens. I do use them on. I would recommend it for larger lenses. When I used to shoot my Nikon, I would have very large, you know, uh, lenses on the front element. Let me see. See, like this is my Nikon 20 millimeter. Just to give you some perspective, this is a big lens. It has a 72 millimeter, 77 millimeter thread. So the front element is really huge. And so I put a UV filter on this because the lens element in the front is kind of big and it bulbs out just slightly. Uh, and it's wide angle, right? So the fact that it's wide angle means the lens hood itself is very short. So it doesn't offer much protection to the lens. So for wide angle lenses that have a big front element, yeah, I would put a UV filter on. That's my personal preference. Um, that's how I would use it. Otherwise, I always use lens hood to protect the front element when I can. Rick, Casas, Rick, let me see. Okay, it looks like Rick says, would tilting the center help image stabilization? Your thoughts need stabilizing. Yeah, I know. Like I said, I don't know why. Image stabilization. I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around the concept of this because it goes this way, but also tilts this way and this way. Just a mental block somehow. And I'm really trying. My friend took a shot including the moon, Venus, and the International Space Station. Okay. Using his phone. Wow. Wow, Howard, that's interesting. I mean, it's always cloudy whenever I think about doing astro, so I have a hard time. David's asking, should he use Starry Sky AF for the space station? I don't see why not. But again, it's not something I have any experience with. Steven, I ordered the new OMD Mark III from Olympus. Any idea when they are shipping them? No, I have no idea. I know people are getting them though. But I guess it would depend where you're at. You know, what country you're in and what the distribution channels are. One Life says, you are probably done, Fuji XT30. Yeah, I'm not done with it. I haven't even started, to be honest, with the XT30. I mean, it's really a nice camera. It's just the ergonomics don't fit my, you know, I've developed my muscle memory for Olympus. And anyway, I haven't even started using this hardly. Ugh. Yeah, Rick, maybe image stabilization in the forum. We'll talk about that there a little. You're welcome, Andrea. Andrea says, thanks for teaching. So yeah, Stephen, I have no idea. Vischow says, Rob, isn't there some kind of tax that applied if a camera records video more than 30 minutes, considering it's a video camera? I've heard that. I don't know if that's still the case. I've also heard that they removed that tax law that adds a tax to video cameras. I just don't live in a country that it matters, right? So I can't tell you firsthand if they've eliminated that tax or not. I found that the external battery charging doesn't work with non-Olympus batteries. Oh, okay, that's possible. I never used non-Olympus batteries in my EM1s. I haven't tried it on EM5 though, because I do have generic batteries for my EM5 Mark II that has, I'm sorry, EM5 Mark III that has charging. But it may work. Let's see. Right now I have an Olympus original in here, but I mean, I assume, David, you're talking about the EM1 Mark III. I don't know about other brands. So I got this generic battery. And I strongly discourage doing this for you guys. Charging batteries in camera. Especially generics. What is this? A USB 2. I even have a USB 2 cable anymore. Everything seems to be going USB-C these days. And I have a ton of USB 2 cables. Where are they? All right, EM5 Mark III, USB 2, generic battery, generic power pack. It works. See, I got the little red light. And my power bank is on. It's got the lights. So on the EM5 Mark III, it works. I'm not going to try it on the EM1 Mark III or 2. Because I don't have any generic batteries, nor will I ever buy a generic battery for those cameras. And any camera, I generally don't recommend charging in camera because the batteries can get warm inside, especially generics. They swell up and then potentially explode. I mean, the chemistry on these are very, very sensitive to heat, you know. And if the generic battery, you know, those little $10 or $5 or $10 generic batteries are very risky. Okay. Just catching up here. Hi, Rob. The form is working fine now. Good. Good, John. Rick and good morning. I am new to using mirrorless. When out on a photo walk, do you leave the power on between shots? This could be a couple of minutes and or do you use a lens cap between shots? I never use a lens cap between shots, and I typically do leave the power on between shots because I carry a lot of extra batteries, 2 or 3. So even if the battery goes out, it's easy enough to change it out. So yeah, I leave the power on. Now there is a way to extend the battery life by using the sleep mode or quick sleep mode. It's a little tricky to engage. You have to have the EVF on and the live view off with showing that, and it only shows the super control panel. But the quick sleep mode will shut the camera down after 3 or 5 seconds, whatever you set it to. And that's the best way to extend your battery life. And I think 5 hidden features on the M10 Mark II. If you watch that video, I show you exactly how to use the quick sleep mode because that's the best way to extend your battery life. So if you're out with a single battery or low on batteries in general, then that'll extend your battery life and that will automatically shut the camera off. I don't physically turn off the camera with a switch. Again, I try to avoid pushing buttons or moving dials on a camera that I don't have to. You have to do exposure comp. You have to do a lot of things, but the power switch, you only really have to switch off once each time you go out. And then use the quick sleep mode to put the camera to sleep very quickly. But there's some compromises, right? You lose the live view and you only get to use the EVF. But in a pinch, quick sleep mode is the best way to extend battery life. And lens caps, I use lens hoods all the time, so there's very little risk of damaging the lens with a lens hood on, or so I don't use lens caps at all. I always lose my lens caps. Yeah, I take them off and I put them in a box as soon as I get the lens, and I put the lens hood on. So I have a box of lens hoods caps. This might almost dropped something. Yeah, this is my lens hoods and box toolbox, and I just put everything in here. um, that way, technically, even if I lose one, I probably have another one that'll fit anyway. How can you explain why 300 millimeter is equivalent to 600 millimeter on full frame? Uh, well, really, it's about the field of view, right? So whatever the field of view is on micro four thirds with a 300 millimeter lens on it, if you put that same lens on a full frame, your field of view is going to be wider on a full frame. So to get the same field of view on a full frame camera, you have to put a 600 millimeter lens on it to match the field of view on a micro four thirds camera. So that's kind of the logic behind it. And if you have I'm trying to think of an easier way to explain that. Let me know if that makes sense. If that makes sense, then I don't have to think too hard about how to explain that. Uh, but yeah, a 300 millimeter lens will, on a micro four thirds, you'll only see, maybe, God, what's a better way to explain this? All right, here's a print that I made. So let's say this is a 300 millimeter lens on a micro four thirds. Or I'm sorry, I'm doing a terrible job at explaining this. Maurice. Yeah, Maurice, I'm doing a terrible job. I'm sorry. But, if this were 300 millimeters on a micro four thirds, uh, to get the same field of view, you have to put a 600 millimeter on a full frame. So it's about the field of view. It's not really about anything else like aperture or image quality, things like that. It's strictly to do with the field of view. Um, I don't know if that makes sense. That's funny, Rick. Hi, Rob. Which uses more energy, EVF or LCD? I thought I heard from Robin say that the EVF is more of a power hog. I think, I haven't measured it myself, but yeah, the general consensus is the EVF draws more power because of the because it's a higher resolution, right? A 2.3 megapixel image versus a 1 megapixel image, so that it's actually drawing more energy from the CPU to process the image to 2.3 megapixels. So uh, that's the idea. I think part of it, and I don't know if in real life you could measure it. Like if you take 1,000 pictures, if you use the EVF versus the live view, would you get like 10 more pictures if you use the EVF only or live view only? You know what I mean? I think the differences are so subtle that other things that you do or practice or real life use make a bigger impact on your battery life than choosing between EVF and live view. Uh, so I wouldn't worry about it at all. I mean, the battery life is not great anyway on the cameras, and not just Olympus, but any camera really. That you always got to carry spares, so it's just a non-issue. Craig is asking, does the M5 Mark III also have a 30? Yes, it does. The M5 Mark III has a 30-minute recording limit. Oh, okay. Maurice understood. Okay, the idea of field of view. Thank goodness, because it's hard to do it in a live stream, right? Without doing a diagram. I gotta do that one day. I have a little drawing tablet. I want to do a live stream where I can actually draw things out and explain things a little better. Efren says he's always used UV filters on his lenses for protection the last 17 years. There's a site that did laser tests of the UV filters and which brands gave the least distortion. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the it's not something I do, but yeah, if you're going to get a UV filter, it has to do two things, right? It has to block UV light, which is irrelevant on digital cameras, but it also has to be strong enough to resist impact and not get scratched and all the other things, not have distortion. Uh, so do your due diligence if you're going to buy a UV filter for protection purposes. Like Sefron's suggesting, is there's a website that does laser tests, right? It's not something I can recommend because I don't practice using UV filters, other than the one example I gave. You know, for large lenses that have I'm sorry, my if you guys heard talk about my mom, she just comes over randomly, you know, and she doesn't check with me. So my mom is outside. I have to pause the stream for a few minutes to talk to her. Um, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I'm sorry, guys. She she brought me lunch and some soup. Looks like some kind of salmon and anyway, appreciate you guys' patience. If you guys are still here, appreciate that. My mom is awesome though. She's always bringing me something. I keep telling her, "Don't bring me any food. I'm fine. I got lots of food here." Um, you know, because for me, I like to just buy things fresh and eat them within a couple of days, and then I go buy fresh again, eat them in a couple of days. I mean, it's a little bit trickier now with what's been going on. I try not to go out, but when she brings me food from her house to my house, it 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 makes me not eat the other thing that I have because I have to eat that. And then stuff goes bad. Like I threw away not a lot, but I had to throw away a handful of cantaloupe that I had all cut up because it went bad. Ugh. Anyhow, let's see. Bring my mom into the stream. No. Maybe one day. That would be funny. You guys would love her though. She's got the gift of gab, man. Let me tell you. When I have to go visit my sister and we ride in the car together, it's like a 2-hour ride. She can talk for the whole 2 hours about nothing. It's insane. I mean, she'll talk about all these. She really loves YouTube. She likes watching all these weird videos. She was telling me about some Siamese twin where this girl had two heads, but she was a genius, and they're dating two different people. I mean, how can you date two different people? You're one body with two heads, but you're dating two different people. I don't get that. Uh, but yeah, it's kind of funny, but I could care less about things like that. You know, it just doesn't interest me even the tiniest bit. But she'll go on for 2 hours about that. Anyway, what did I miss here? Yeah, my mom's fine though. She just wanted me to bring lunch. But thanks for asking, Craig. Let's at least meet your mother once. No, I can't. You know, Leon, I can't let her into my house because my dog Ellie, she hates my mom. Well, she doesn't hate my mom, but she doesn't want anybody in my house. So she will. Yeah, I'd have to put Ellie away so she doesn't attack my mom, and then it's too complicated. Lance says, I just bought the M10 Mark II and I'm blown away by the performance and sharpness of the images. Switched over from a Nikon DSLR, mostly using the Panasonic 25. Yeah, Lance, I'm with you. I shot a Nikon D750 for a couple of years and Nikon, D70 100 a couple of years before that. And I don't miss them at all since switching over to the Olympus cameras. I have a video on that. I mean, it's not a great video about why I switched over from full frame to micro four thirds, but to sum it up, basically the same reason. I took pictures with the M10 and I was like, wow, this is nice. It does a good job. Why am I lugging around this heavy gear? I mean, it's good enough for me, right? There's an argument that digital cameras no longer require UV filters. Yeah, like I said, the UV filters do nothing. I think the sensors have their own UV filters on them anyway. Or maybe the sensors are not affected by UV light, but for whatever reason, yeah, nobody needs a UV filter on a digital camera. But people like the UV filters for the peace of mind that they're not going to scratch the front of their lens element. So you can just use a microfiber cloth or whatever on a UV filter. You don't have to use it on your uh, directly on the element of the lens, potentially scratching it, right? Because there's always going to be some fine scratches whenever you clean the front element of a lens. Uh, but that's I'm the last person you want to ask about taking care of your gear. Trust me. Says David, who is Sephrin? Oh, sorry. On paper, the M43 sensor and 16 megapixels shouldn't outperform better specs. On paper, the M43 sensor and 16 megapixels shouldn't outperform. Um, I'm not sure how to answer that because the question is not making sense to me. You could reword that a little bit, but I think what you're trying to ask is why are the why are the images so good even though it's not a full frame? Maybe. Um, or on paper the specs aren't as good because honestly, no matter what camera you buy these days, any modern digital camera, you're really splitting hairs between what you can do on one camera versus another camera in terms of sheer image quality. So you want to buy a camera based on what what feels good in your hands ergonomically and has the features that you're looking for. And then image quality, I think even in the last 10 years, you can get good image quality out of any sensor. If you have a very specific purpose for the camera, or you need a certain specific performance to be the very best in a particular situation, then yeah, you want to look at the details, the fine details, the differences between sensors. Um, like you might choose micro four thirds over full frame for the larger depth of field and the more light and the lower aperture that you can use for video work or for photography, for landscapes. There's a lot of different reasons, right? Uh, and then vice versa, you may want to get a full frame camera, um, for the larger pixel pitch size, so you get that more light gathering per pixel, hence less noise in lower light situations. Um, but then the trade-off is size and weight, right? And cost of lenses and everything else. So, uh, but for the average enthusiast photographer, you can buy any camera and you'll be okay. uh, any interchangeable lens camera. Just buy the one that fits you best in terms of the ergonomics, maybe the menu system, maybe the user experience with a better EVF. Some people prefer a really good EVF. Some people prefer metal bodies. Uh, but strictly speaking, in terms of sensors, if you go to my forum, uh, Francois just posted images from 2007 from an E310, which is a really old micro four thirds sensor made by Kodak, and the images are gorgeous. Anyway, oh, thank you. Too old for toys. How are you? He's been a subscriber to my channel forever, or at least been watching forever. My goodness, good to see you. Lance says, sorry, I meant to say that the specs aren't as good as newer cameras on paper, but the quality is incredible. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I mean, it is splitting hairs. Some people say this is 12 stops dynamic range, this one's 14 stops dynamic range, but in real world use, uh, you're talking about 7 stops, give or take, of actual exposure latitude, depending how you're exposing the image, right? Are you exposing to the right, thereby limiting your latitude, or not? Well, latitude's not quite the right word, but yeah, I mean it's more about technique and understanding the limits of your camera, whatever it might be, to get the best image out of it. And if you really need a high dynamic range, you do what everybody does. You bracket the shot, you know, because 12 stops to 14 stops is not, it's not, I don't think it's really that big a deal. Uh, and who knows how that's measured, because I didn't measure it. When I try to measure dynamic range on a sensor, I saw a very interesting technique online. And yeah, I'm getting like less than 7 stops dynamic range on just about any camera I have. Uh, and Seikonic has a software to measure the true dynamic range of a camera, supposedly. Again, it's not something I've done. And no matter what camera I've seen people do this test on, it's 7 stops. uh, but that's beyond my expertise or skill set. Because ultimately it doesn't matter. The cameras, the images look good no matter what camera you use, if you know what you're doing with that camera. Yeah, Serge is saying the X20 is a 12 megapixel image, and the images are outstanding. I agree. It's got a little 2/3 sensor, right? CMOS. And David says that computing power and processors make up the difference, which is true. It's in the raw processing of the image, in camera or either in software, where you can really make a beautiful image. Steve says, hi Rob, have you a YouTube vid on using LiveCom? Yes. The image stabilization is coming over the UK tonight. Not image stable, the ISS, the International Space Station, and hoping to get a shot off if it's a clear sky. Okay, I don't know if I would use LiveCom, because then the image would streak, wouldn't it? I don't know. I know nothing about taking pictures of a space station or a satellite or things like that. But I have two videos on live comp. I have one that's a little more recent, uh, that may not apply to what you want to do. And then I have an older one, uh, that I really walk through all of the steps. So let me see. Uh, Episode number 55. This is the one that goes into, so I'll put a link down below for you, about my video on live comp. So watch that and see if that applies to what you're trying to do, because I'm not exactly sure. UV results test in case anyone is interested. Yeah, you know, Saffron, if you get a chance, post it in my forum too, under, I don't know, somewhere, whatever category. I don't have a category for weird stuff like that. Not weird, but UVs. Maybe post it in the Olympus forum, a link to that test, because I'm sure a lot of people would love to see that. Plato says he uses bottled still water. I assume you mean distilled water, with Q-tips to clean my lenses. Got it from the Angry Photographer. Yes, he has a video, um about cleaning lenses, because he claims to have cleaned lenses, like thousands of lenses, right? So he uses distilled water and a Q-tip, and also he uses I think rubbing alcohol, right? So you can watch that video. I mean, like I said, it seems like a legitimate way to clean lenses. I've tried it and it works, but you know, take it with a grain of salt. You know, everything you see on YouTube. uh, when it comes to cleaning your lenses, especially your sensors, or cleaning your cameras, any kind of maintenance that you do on your camera, do your due diligence and make sure that this is in line with what the manufacturer recommends or not, right? Because it's very easy to fall into these little traps, so to speak, that, yeah, it worked great on that camera and it should apply to every camera intuitively. But, you know, lenses, for example, have different coatings, right? From different generations. You know, are you damaging that coating on the lens, you know, by cleaning it with distilled water? I don't know. Um, so that may be something I'll have to do, is see what research what Olympus recommends on how to maintain or take care of your gear, and stick to that strictly when I give any kind of advice about uh, how to clean gear and equipment. Because, like I said, I do a lot of the same things. I go online and I was like, you know, I got a spot on my lens. How do I get that off? And I'll do it, but maybe I got rid of the spot, but maybe I did some other damage to the lens that I'm not aware of. Um, Anyhow, but distilled water and a Q-tip seems fairly benign in terms of cleaning things, right? Let's see. Marco, how are you? I own Olympus EM10 Mark II, and I think it's an outstanding camera, perfect for travel and with pretty good darn results. Yes, absolutely. The EM10 Mark II is an awesome, awesome camera. Mine has been beat to death, so I use my EM5 Mark II now a lot more than my EM10. Really has been relegated to the shelf. It's having some other issues now, like the clock doesn't stay current, right? Every time I turn the camera on, the clock is reset to 0. The EVF doesn't work anymore. The battery door and the springs are broken. You know, because I've dropped it so many times. This poor guy here. So I'm not surprised that it's malfunctioning. It's really hard to tell. You can see this thing, I wore this thing out. All the paint's rubbed off. It's kind of pretty now, right? With all this wear and tear on it, right? Kind of this damaged look to it. Uh, I mean, it's kind of cool looking now, actually, with all these dents and dings in it. But anyway, uh, Lance Lance says, I used to shoot RAW 100% of the time on my Nikon, but these superfine JPEGs out of the M10 Mark II are so good I think I'll switch back to JPEG only unless I'm doing something specific. Yeah, for my, I'm with you, Lance. You and I are on the same page, man. I shoot RAW plus JPEG, but 90% of the time I just use the JPEG straight out of camera, and I try to get that as correct as the best I can in camera to the point that I don't need to do any editing or want to do editing, right? Like my last video with where I did the toilet paper challenge, where I did my James Bond video or kind of image of me standing at the end of a barrel. That was all done in camera, no post processing. A straight out of camera JPEG, and I made it there, practically in real time. The too many people think it's all tech specs. Yeah, some people get into the techs and gear, the technical specs of the gear, and that in and of itself is fine. I think in my younger days as a nerd, I really enjoyed finding the the very best or something that was just a little bit better than this, without really focusing on the true uh, the true purpose of the device itself. So I think even like it's kind of like a person that buys valuable things, like say they want to have the very best violin, right? And they focus so hard on whatever the things are about that instrument or that violin, and it's very expensive, and they buy it because it has a certain sound to it, or a certain someone built, something very unique or special about it, but they don't know how to play the violin, you know. But they enjoy the process of buying that instrument or violin for the things that it has and what makes that violin special. And that's the only reason they bought it, even though they don't know how to play. And I think with camera gear, it's kind of the same way. You buy camera gear because you're looking for that certain technical spec or certain performance that's just a little better than this camera in this area, and you want to own that camera for that reason, even though you may or may not be a photographer, right? Or a good photographer. You may be just more into the gear itself. Um, I don't know. I don't know if that was a good analogy, but um, I don't want to put anybody down for buying gear because of the technical specs, because I think there's a certain gratification and enjoyment in that process in of itself. Just like when someone buys instruments that they don't know how to play, but they would like that instrument for what it is as a collectible. Or it's a terrible analogy, but that's, you know, I get it. Uh, soft, soft to be fun. Soft tube fun says I use Zeiss wipes. Yeah, lens wipes at Walmart from David. Yeah, there's a lot of ways. I just use a microfiber. Shake it first to get any dust off of it, or sand before I wipe my lenses. I'm not too careful with my gear. I should be a lot more careful with it, but it's not. I don't know. That's just me. Olympus does not recommend leaving champagne spray on your lenses, so probably not advised to use champagne on wire tool to clean your lenses. Yeah, I'm not sure what champagne is though. Champagne spray, I'm not familiar with that. I'm missing half the joke here. If you're joking, which is implied because you're saying wire wool. Uh, Margaret says I'm always afraid because it's no weather resistance, but I take it all my travels, rain, wind, sun. So far, never missed a beat. Yeah, I mean I've gotten my cameras in rain. You know, the EM10, my Pen PL8. I posted a picture, I think, on my Instagram with it. I opened all, when I got home, I took the lenses off. I opened the battery door, took the battery out, pulled the tilt screens out so that it was kind of, the camera was expanded as much as it can to get as much air as, around it as I can to dry out. But once they dried out, they were fine. No problems. Of course, there's other people, they get one drop of rain in the wrong place and it shuts the whole camera down, right? So uh, it's always best to avoid getting non-weather sealed cameras, really any camera, wet if you can help it. Don't get them wet. But that said, it was actually Tony's channel. He did a survey between all the manufacturers and with his viewers, you know, about the customer service of the companies. And Olympus, they said not one person reported sending their camera in for water damage. Whereas every other brand, somebody's, said that they had to send their camera in for water damage before, but nobody from Olympus. And who knows what the sample size was, but uh, he has a pretty good user base, so I would imagine sample size was pretty decent, enough that it would be significantly statistically significant. But anyhow, Rick Bear says UV filters are good for keeping champagne spray the major problem at some events. So you're talking literally champagne, like a bottle of champagne. Okay. Tony says, if you can play it, what's the point? So you're collecting cameras. Well, Tony, I mean, to be fair, like there's cameras that I buy because well, let me rephrase that. There's cameras I want to buy just for the sake of what that camera is. Like, and it doesn't address the point you made that if you don't know how to do photography, why buy it? But like there's a camera, there's a couple of cameras made by Olympus. The Olympus, it's a little Ferrari camera, and there's also another kind of weirdo camera that they have that I would love to own, even though I would probably never use them because I love them for what they are. One is a Ferrari-inspired Olympus digital camera from like 10 years ago, and another one is an older film camera that had a very unique design. And then there's other cameras that, like the old Leicas, right? From the 50s. They're beautiful. I forget what they're called. Uh, I think it's a Leica M3 double stroke. It's a camera that is just so expensive. I don't know if I'll buy it, but I do love that camera and I would buy it. And if I did buy it, I probably wouldn't use it because of it's a double stroke M3 Leica camera that's renowned for its engineering and has some history to it. So I think I could see the same thing with people buying digital cameras for that same thing, like maybe the Nikon DF. Is on my short list of cameras to buy that I probably wouldn't really use, but I really like the design of that camera and kind of the thinking that went into it to make it. Like it has no video mode on it. Uh, money no object. I'd be like Jay Leno, right? Jay Leno's garage. We'll call it Rob Treck's closet of cameras. One day, I'll have like thousands of cameras, and I'll have a show where I just talk about this one camera and the history and the lineage. So, anyhow, yeah, that's true, Al. A lot of hobbies are into gear more than the pros. In some photography forum, I read that macro tubes Could damage the electronics of the software camera. What do you think? I don't see how. I mean, if it's other than, the you're dealing with electrical contacts a lot of times with macro tubes, and if it's a poor quality electrical contact, uh, I could see that damaging the electronics in the camera potentially because of it's the electronics in a camera are very sensitive, right? So you're sending a certain amount of voltage to what the camera thinks is a lens, and the lens has to transmit back data back to the camera. So that roundabout process, if you have poor electrical contacts in between, could potentially be causing damage either through whatever electrical reasons there are, in terms of resistance or etc. It's way over my scope of knowledge about electronics, but that would be my first thought about why an extension tube might potentially damage a camera. And I've used a lot of extension tubes. Well, I've used three different kinds, and none of them, and they're all dirt cheap, and none of them have damaged my camera to date. So that's my personal experience, but uh, I didn't really give it a lot of thought when I bought the extension tubes about it damaging. If it was a prevalent issue, I would think it'd be more. There'd be more word about it in the streets. Don't buy stupid extension tubes because they mess up your camera. Uh, but yeah, I'll have to look into that now. I'm a little curious myself if maybe there is some risk there because it's not an official Olympus product, right? Whenever you use third-party products on your Olympus cameras, you always run the risk of some kind of issue potentially. So yeah, just Giuseppe, I that's the best answer I can give you. Is it hasn't happened to me, but I can see where there could be some issue. But it's beyond me what the electronics of that. Thomas says my OMD 10.2 fell in a local stream, full immersion, took the battery out, immersed in rice, and 3 days later all was good. Yeah, I didn't put my camera in rice because I don't want that dust getting in the sensor, but I just let it air out for a week, and then turned it on. It was fine. I don't know. Maybe it was only overnight. I didn't get it soaked like you did and drop it in the water. Seems like when I'm trying to be careful with my equipment, that's when it gets broken. Exactly. It's Murphy's Law, right? It always happens. I can't think of any immediate examples, but I know what you mean. Uh, I went from buying Star Wars toys to buying cameras. Yeah, me too. I still buy Star Wars toys. I know I bought one recently. I forget what it was. By recently, I mean within the last couple of years. I know I bought the Star Wars Rogue movie a couple of years ago. I could have sworn it was a toy. Oh, yeah, my little TIE fighter. It's downstairs, but I used to. If you watch some of my older videos, you'll see a TIE fighter in the as one of my props when I'm doing one of my tutorials. That's what I bought. I just thought it'd be a cool prop. Contacts have to match the camera and lens for them to work. Yes. I use tubes and have never had a problem. Yeah, I've never heard of anyone having problems. Like I said, if it was really a problem, I would think there'd be more discussion about it in the forums, but I don't know. GM should do a show on using old OM series lenses on the Micro Four Thirds system, pros and cons using focus and the same stabilization. Yeah. Oh, you mean good morning? I'm sorry. I don't have any old OM series. Oh wait, OM. Oh, okay, yeah, I have kind of a video on that already. Uh, about adapting lenses, but I could do one specifically for Olympus, the OM series. That's a good idea, Hans. Maybe I'll do that. Too old for toys says help. Yesterday with the M1 Mark II, I had to alternate back and forth between focus stacking and pro capture modes, but lost time in delving into menus. Is there a solution of your old videos? Um, yeah, I would just program C1 and C2 separately, and then either program a function button to switch back and forth, or just turn the mode dial. So I think I do have a video on programming the custom settings. Let's see what it's called. What would I call that? Buttons? Try episode number 46, really old one. But it talks about using my sets, but on the EM1 Mark II they call it custom settings, I think. So, but the methodology or the process is pretty much identical, whether they call it a my set or a custom setting. I would try episode 46 or an EM10, but it should apply. Well, that would be a very interesting show. Really, adapting old OM lenses. I love my OM glass. I really only have the two, the 50mm f1.8 and the 24mm f2.8. Those are really two good lenses for Micro Four Thirds. The Mighty Orbots on DVD. A lot of small toys, yeah. We can all buy new stuff now with money coming from the feds. Yeah. I'll probably use it to actually pay for what it was intended for, was to help you survive, you know? Because work has slowed down a tiny bit. Hi Rob, I have an EM5 Mark II and I'm looking to get a Pen F. Other than better aesthetics, will I see a difference in image quality or function? Well, Zach, I would say that a good video to watch is one I did comparing the EM10 Mark II with the Pen F. And that will give you a lot of detail about the differences between the two cameras, and it would apply to the M5 Mark II as well. I think that that would be where I direct you after I give you my short answer here. But the short answer is the Pen F is a very JPEG-centric camera and has a lot of features built in to help you tweak your JPEG images. So there's a color wheel where you can change the saturation of individual colors. There's various monochrome profiles where you can tweak highlight shadows, add grain. There's that, and then there's there's also some, when you're adapting lenses, you're able to program the lens profile into the camera, which you can't do on the EM5 Mark II or the EM10. So there's a lot of subtle differences too in terms of using the camera. Ultimately, the image quality is the same, right? And you can do all of these things in post-processing using Olympus Workspace, but using the camera in the field uh, and being able to make these adjustments in camera is what I relish in the Pen F. I like looking at the scene with my naked eye and then applying these changes in the field while I'm looking at it in real life. Because it's a very different experience to take a raw image, then go home and process it, when you're no longer there, right? Because it's hard for me to remember or appreciate how the lighting was and the details of the scene after the fact. So I like to do things in camera as much as I can while I'm in the field, and the Pen F has a lot more flexibility in that respect. It also has the black and white filters are much more granular. You can change the intensity, and you have additional filters not available on the EM5 Mark II. So if you're a black and white shooter, I think you'll definitely appreciate the Pen F even more. If you're a JPEG shooter, you'll appreciate some of the features of the color wheel. And there's another part in there, but it's not quite as stark a difference using the color wheel as it is the black and white images. But people have programmed the color wheel to emulate other film simulations to some extent. Uh, Siegfried, I forget his name, but he has an excellent article on that. So if you're a JPEG shooter, yeah, definitely the Pen F makes a great second camera to go out and enjoy as a JPEG shooter. If you shoot in RAW, there's and post process all the time, there's really no point to get a Pen F because you can do everything in RAW in post processing. If you're not going to shoot JPEG, the Pen F just I wouldn't recommend it for that. Oh, let me give you the video where I go into detail about the differences. Uh, Pen F versus EM10 So there's a link that you can watch where I go into more detail about the differences. So hopefully I answered your question, Zach. So Chuck says, when I went to buy some nice red extension tubes, the vendor came back and said there was a problem with them and killed the sale. A month later, I got them on Amazon and they seem to work just fine. Yeah, I'm not having any issues. John softly said, it's time to isolate in the bed. Good night. Okay, good night, John. I'm sorry I missed you. That was like 7 minutes ago. Programming custom settings is the new to me. Episode 46, cool, thanks. Oh, okay, good. Good, I'm glad that helped. The only thing I am scared of buying is batteries. Heard folks saying that unbranded batteries damage their yeah. But Marco says he also builds Star Wars toys and Marvel toys a lot. Wow. You should take pictures of them. Do some toy photography. I've seen some really creative ideas where people put their little stormtroopers in the dirt and then use fireworks to create sparks and took a picture and it looks like live action. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Mike Hamley, the M1 Mark III bracketing question. Lightroom recommends using 2 shots plus or minus 2 EV. I can't find a way to get this other than using HDR mode. The closest would be 5 frames plus or minus 1 EV. Then I have 5. Yeah. Off the top of my head, that's the only way I know how to do it, to be honest. The HDR, yeah, HDR mode does have the bracketing also, right? So what is the challenge though? I'm trying to understand here. Let me look at the HDR function real quick. Because HDR will give you 3 frames plus or minus 2 EV. So if I select that, I see. When you do it with HDR, it locks you into a high-speed shutter. I can change this and this. Let's see, can I lock the ISO? Yeah, I can lock the ISO. Yeah, so the challenge with using HDR mode to get those shots is, the problem with HDR mode is you have to physically push the shutter button to get it started, versus you can use custom timer or something else when you're doing bracketing, right? So you don't have to touch the camera. The other alternative would be to use a remote trigger. You know, I forget the which one did you have? Had the EM1 Mark III. So the EM1 Mark III, you have to use a remote trigger that has the 2.5 pin millimeter thread. Then I think using HDR would be viable, or more viable than using bracketing, where you have to take 5 frames in any direction, right? Han says, I'm having trouble sending you the pics via Yahoo, so may need help. May need to get a new laptop. Okay. Yeah. What kind of trouble are you having though? And try and rule out the laptop. Where do you guys download your pics for perusal? I mean, I just use I use my Google Drive if I just want to, or Google Photos, and then I can share it through Google Photos. That's what I normally do. If you don't have a Gmail account or Google account, you can set up a free Flickr account, and that'll let you put in, decent size images. Sefrin says, I'm a JPEG shooter, but I like to set up my camera so it takes color and black and white simultaneously. I have 2 files to choose from. Yes, I do that time to time. I've been told to not do that, like bracket my shots with multiple images of the same thing, because it doesn't let you, it doesn't force you to think about what would be better, color or black and white. And so I can see I mean, that's a valid point. Uh, Thank you for the response. You've really helped me make an informed decision. I'll check out oh, okay, Zach, yeah. Hans Lubert, having some fun with the M10 Mark III. Good. Yeah, the Mark III is a great camera. Olympus should produce a gold-plated Pen F on a heavy gold chain. It is male jewelry after all. Beautiful design. That would be something, right? I'm sure somebody has done it personally already. They've probably done a gold-plated Pen F on their own. People with money, they do crazy things like that, right? Probably somebody in Dubai. Because you always see those gold-plated SUVs in Dubai, gold-plated cars. They probably got a gold-plated Pen F. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, sorry, the sound has been gone for 6 minutes. Crap. I'm so sorry. I just got to the comment. I'm 6 minutes behind, and then somebody said the sound is gone. It must have been when I switched over to the thing. And then and this is another class. Why does the sound disappear when I flip screens though? I don't understand. I'm gonna have to figure that out. I will one of these days. He'll get these posts in a second. Yeah, it took me 6 minutes this time. The sound of silence. Yeah, wife's great on the floor. Yeah, sorry, Hans. Thanks, Lance. You guys are so patient. I wasn't even paying attention to how many people are on the stream, but it looks like most of you stuck around. That's cool. Uh, Calra from Italy. I'm a big fan. Okay, Andre. Yeah. Oh, I got your email, Andre. You asked me something about the Pen F. Um, I'll email you back, but I did read it this morning. I just didn't have time to reply. Um, yeah, I didn't have time to reply because I woke up only about an hour before the stream, so I had to respond to other things and get ready. Ooh, okay. I need to sit up straight. My posture's so bad. Says this is your signature of Rob Trek YouTube video. No worries. Thanks. It's so silly. I just couldn't imagine, like, if I'm watching a live stream of someone else and their video just or their audio died, that would really piss me off as a viewer. What the heck was I talking about? I don't even know. Let me go back to, let's see, 11:30. I switched over right around 11:30, and I was talking about the EM1, and then yeah, I think I was just answering your question, Rick, about the EM1 Mark III. When I used the external power bank to power the camera, the HDMI port turns off, so I wasn't able to use my big monitor, and that was the thing that surprised me about the EM1 Mark III, is you can't power the camera via USB and use the HDMI port at the same time. I think that's what I was talking about. Oh, thank you, Piranha. I haven't seen Elaine today. Elaine's usually, Johnny on the spot every week. A lot of you guys are here. I'm so flattered, man. I should probably call it, because the problem is this salmon down that my mom cooked for me right in front of me, and I haven't had breakfast yet. So I'm like looking at the camera, then looking at that, then looking at you guys, and like I said, it's like there's some things that have been happening as I get older. It's like there's very few in betweens. It's like I'm either not hungry or I'm famished within minutes. Like I don't have to go to the bathroom to, like, I don't even have time to close the door. You know, it's like I don't know what it is with age, but some things suddenly just become urgent. Ah, Oh, thanks, Lance. I appreciate that. I had previously had an E3 system, which I believed was weather resistant. If the lens from the E3 with an adapter on the OMD EM1 Mark II is weather resistant, still applicable. I seriously doubted that but I don't know if the lens adapters that you would buy for that would be weather sealed. Uh, Plus the fact that those lenses are very old, um, I doubt the weather sealing is any good anymore because, rubber and silicone and all that deteriorates over time, regardless of, you know, environment. I think I wouldn't risk it or trust it for weather sealing at this point. Anything more than 5 years old, I would not trust the weather sealing at all. I don't trust it to begin with, weather sealing in general, so I avoid water. But especially something 5, 10 years old, yeah, weather sealing is gone. Rob, I think the PenF does not exist on an external battery pack. So if I make a long time lapse or Milky Way trial video, I risk that the PenF is going to eat my battery for, yeah. Yeah, you might get an hour of PenF battery, but more than that, you're going to start sweating when the camera's going to turn off. So the best thing to do is to plan for it, to change the battery every hour. Because if it's a time lapse, you're just taking several pictures anyway. Nobody's going to notice that you stopped and changed the battery. Just make sure it's on a very sturdy tripod and you don't change your field of view at all, even a tiny bit. Otherwise, people will see that jump, right? So if you plan ahead and change the battery while it's on a tripod or sturdy surface, people probably won't notice. Man, I still got sound. Okay. I go through all the trouble of like setting all this gear up and then flipping screens somehow just it always happens when I flip over to this screen. I don't know why. But okay. I'm gonna go, guys. Uh what I'm gonna do, actually, I need to make a I'm gonna try and do some set up a forum that people can go and um submit pictures so we can just talk about them together later. So I'll post a link in the forum to that. And then I might make a short video about the forum and posting links for the next live stream to just, share some pictures and quote unquote critique them. Like, what would I do differently if I took that same picture? So critique is kind of the wrong word. It'd just be like, two photographers, how would you do that and how would you do that? It doesn't mean one is right or wrong, right? Uh, and so I'll put links to that. And then again, look out Wednesday for new videos from everyone here in the Micro Four Thirds community: Peter, Robin, Maddie, Joe, maybe. And then next week, I'm going to have Peter and Robin live with us on next Sunday's live stream. So, again, thanks everyone for joining today, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. Hang out, and thanks again.